Every month, millions of people experience the exact same moment. A notification appears. Salary credited. For a few seconds, life feels lighter. Bills suddenly seem manageable. Dreams feel closer. The future looks a little less uncertain. Then, something almost invisible begins to happen. Money starts disappearing. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Just quietly. A subscription renews. A late-night food delivery. An online sale that feels impossible to ignore. A few small purchases that don't seem important. Days pass. Then weeks. And before the next paycheck arrives, the account is nearly empty again. Here's the strange part. Most people think financial success depends on earning more. But history tells a different story. There are athletes who earned millions and went bankrupt. Lottery winners who lost everything. Entrepreneurs who built fortunes and watched them vanish. At the same time, teachers, engineers, office workers, people with completely ordinary incomes quietly became financially free. The difference wasn't luck. It wasn't intelligence. And it certainly wasn't income alone. It was what happened during the first hour after every paycheck arrived. That single window of time, repeated month after month, quietly shaped the rest of their lives. Today, you're about to discover 15 habits that transform a paycheck from something you spend into something that slowly builds freedom. Some of these ideas will feel surprisingly simple. Others may completely change the way you think about money. But together, they form a system. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at payday the same way again. Because every paycheck asks you one silent question. Will you spend me? Or will you build your future with me? Thing number 1. Pause before you celebrate. Imagine standing at the edge of a lake. The water is perfectly still. Now imagine throwing a dozen stones into it at once. Ripples spread in every direction. That's what excitement does to money. The biggest financial mistakes rarely happen because people are irresponsible. They happen because they're emotional. Payday feels like permission. Permission to relax. Permission to reward yourself. Permission to finally buy what you've been looking at all month. There's nothing wrong with celebrating your hard work. But here's what most people never realize. The first decision after receiving money is often the most expensive one. Psychologists call this hot state decision-making. When emotions rise, judgment quietly steps into the background. The smartest investors know something powerful. They don't make major decisions immediately after receiving money. They create space. Even 24 hours can completely change what feels necessary. Picture two people earning exactly the same salary. One spends impulsively on payday. The other waits until tomorrow. After 10 years, their financial lives barely resemble each other. Not because of income. Because of patience. The first habit is surprisingly simple. When your paycheck arrives, pause. Breathe. Let excitement settle before your money starts moving. Because patience is often the first investment you'll ever make. And speaking of investments, the next habit ensures your future gets paid before anyone else does. Thing number 2. Pay your future self first ***. Imagine two employees. Both receive the exact same paycheck. One waits until the end of the month to save whatever remains. Usually, nothing remains. The other person does something almost invisible. The moment the paycheck arrives, 10% disappears. Not into spending. Not into bills. Into an investment account. Months pass. Nothing dramatic happens. Then years begin stacking together. That tiny stream becomes a river. Here's the fascinating part. Most people treat saving as an afterthought. Successful people treat it as the first bill they must pay. Because your future version is working every day. Without having a voice. The 60-year-old you. The retired you. The version of you who wants freedom instead of stress. That person depends entirely on the decisions you're making today. Imagine planting a tree. You don't expect shade tomorrow. But someday, you'll be grateful you planted it. Every paycheck carries seeds. The question is whether you'll eat every seed, or plant a few. The practical rule is simple. Automate your savings before your money reaches your spending account if possible. What you never see, you rarely miss. And what quietly grows, often changes your entire future. But protecting your future isn't enough. First, you have to make sure your present isn't quietly leaking money. Thing number 3, hunt down invisible money leaks. No one worries about a single drop of water until they realize it never stops dripping. Money works exactly the same way. Most financial damage doesn't come from one huge purchase. It comes from hundreds of tiny ones. A subscription you forgot existed. Premium features you never use. Food deliveries because cooking feels inconvenient. Random online purchases made out of boredom. Each one whispers, "It's only a little." But together, they become a silent paycheck disappearing every month. Here's an exercise. Open your banking app. Scroll through the last 30 days. Don't judge yourself. Just observe. You'll probably find purchases you barely remember making. That's powerful, because awareness creates control. Think of your paycheck as a bucket. Most people focus on pouring in more water. Very few notice the holes underneath. Fixing leaks is often easier than earning another raise. And sometimes, it has exactly the same financial impact. The next habit takes that recovered money and gives every single dollar a purpose. Thing number 4, give every dollar a mission ***. Imagine hiring 100 employees, then telling them, just do whatever you want. Chaos would be inevitable. Yet that's exactly how many people treat money. Their paycheck arrives. It sits in the account, then slowly wanders away. Without direction. Without intention. Without purpose. Successful people don't wonder where their money went. They tell it where to go before it has the chance to disappear. Every dollar receives an assignment. Housing, food, investments, learning, emergency savings, experiences, even fun. Yes, fun deserves its own category, because a financial plan that leaves no room for joy rarely survives. A budget isn't a prison. It's a map. Without one, every temptation becomes a possible destination. With one, every decision becomes easier. Imagine boarding a plane whose pilot simply says, "We'll figure it out in the air." You'd never feel safe. Yet many people navigate their financial lives exactly that way. Your paycheck deserves a flight plan. Not because money loves rules, but because your future loves certainty. And now, we're about to reach a habit that has nothing to do with spending, nothing to do with saving. Yet it quietly determines how much money you'll earn for the rest of your life. Thing number 5, invest in the person who earns the paycheck. Imagine owning a machine that prints money. Not endlessly, but consistently. Would you maintain it? Would you upgrade it? Would you protect it? Of course you would. Now here's the twist. You already own that machine. It's you. Every paycheck is proof that your knowledge, your skills, your health, and your reputation have value in the marketplace. Yet every month, people spend hundreds upgrading their phones, while investing nothing in the person holding the phone. The world doesn't pay you for how hard you work. It pays you for the value you can create. And value can be increased. One course. One certification. One book that changes how you think. One conversation with someone who's already where you want to be. Those small investments often produce returns no stock market can guarantee. Picture 2 coworkers starting on the same salary. One spends every raise. The other spends part of every paycheck becoming more valuable. 5 years later, they don't just earn different incomes. They live different lives. Here's something worth remembering. The greatest asset on your balance sheet isn't your car. It isn't your house. It isn't even your investment account. It's your ability to earn. Protect it. Improve it. Because the better you become, the more opportunities begin looking for you. But becoming more valuable is only half the equation. The other half is preparing for days when life doesn't follow the plan. Thing number 6. Build a wall before the storm arrives. Most storms don't send invitations. A car breaks down. A medical bill appears. A company announces layoffs. A family emergency changes everything overnight. The question isn't whether unexpected expenses will arrive. The question is whether they'll arrive before you've prepared. Too many people confuse peace of mind with optimism. They believe everything will work out. Until one surprise wipes out years of progress. Imagine two families facing the exact same emergency. The first reaches for a credit card. Stress compounds with interest. Every month becomes harder than the last. The second quietly transfers money from an emergency fund. The problem still hurts. But it doesn't become a financial disaster. Same emergency. Completely different future. An emergency fund isn't exciting. It won't impress your friends. No one posts about it on social media. But it's one of the few financial decisions that allows you to sleep differently. Because money isn't just about buying things. Sometimes, it's about buying time. Buying options. Buying peace. Start small if you have to. 1 week's expenses. Then 1 month. Eventually, aim for several months of essential living costs. Brick by brick. The wall gets stronger. And once you've built that protection, you can stop reacting to money and start making intentional choices. Which brings us to a habit that quietly separates consumers from creators. Thing number 7. Buy assets before you buy upgrades ***. Picture 2 neighbors. On payday, one immediately upgrades something. A newer phone. A bigger television. Designer clothes. The other buys something invisible. A share of a business. A dividend-paying investment. A rental property fund. An index fund. Nothing flashy. Nothing worth showing off. At first, the first neighbor appears more successful. Life looks polished. Impressive. Comfortable. But then something changes. Months become years. The upgrades begin losing value. New models replace old ones. Repairs become more expensive. Meanwhile, the quiet investments keep working, even while their owner sleeps. Here's a question worth asking every payday. Will this purchase make me richer next year? Or simply look richer today? That's the difference between an expense and an asset. One asks for your money. The other eventually gives money back. Imagine hiring employees who never call in sick. Never ask for a vacation. Never complain. That's what assets become. Silent workers. Working around the clock. The goal isn't to never enjoy life. It's to let your assets pay for your lifestyle instead of your salary. And speaking of lifestyle, there's a trap waiting for almost everyone who starts earning more. Thing number 8. Don't let your lifestyle chase your income. It's one of the quietest traps in modern life. You earn more. So you spend more. You receive a raise. The apartment gets bigger. The car gets newer. Vacations become more expensive. The monthly payments quietly multiply. At first, it feels like success. Until one day you realize something unsettling. You're earning twice as much, yet feeling no freer than before. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it has stolen more wealth than many people realize. Imagine climbing a mountain. With every step upward, someone secretly adds another backpack to your shoulders. You're moving higher, but it never feels easier. That's what happens when every increase in income is matched by an increase in spending. Instead, create a different rule. Every time your income grows, increase your investments before increasing your lifestyle. Reward yourself. Absolutely. Celebrate milestones. Enjoy experiences. But let your future receive the biggest raise first. Because financial freedom isn't measured by how much you earn. It's measured by how much you get to keep. The next lesson has almost nothing to do with numbers. Yet it quietly influences every financial decision you'll ever make. Because the greatest battles over money rarely happen inside your bank account. They happen inside your mind. Thing number 9. Separate your wants from your emotions. Here's something most people never realize. Many purchases have nothing to do with the product. They have everything to do with the feeling. Loneliness can look like online shopping. Stress can look like food delivery. Boredom can look like another gadget. Insecurity can look like luxury brands. The receipt says you bought an item. Your mind knows you were buying comfort. Imagine walking into a grocery store while you're starving. Everything suddenly looks essential. Now imagine making financial decisions while you're exhausted, frustrated, or trying to impress someone. The same thing happens. Your emotions become the salesperson. The product is only the excuse. The next time you're about to make an unplanned purchase, ask yourself one question. Am I buying this because I truly need it, or because I need to feel something? That single question creates a pause. And inside that pause, better decisions are born. The wealthiest habit isn't resisting every temptation. It's recognizing which temptations don't actually solve the problem you're trying to escape. Because sometimes, the answer isn't another purchase. It's a conversation, a walk, a night's sleep, or simply acknowledging what you're really feeling. Master your emotions, and your money begins to follow. But emotional discipline becomes even more powerful when paired with one surprising habit that almost every successful person shares. Thing number 10. Leave room for generosity. At first, this may sound backwards. Why give money away when you're trying to build wealth? Because generosity changes something deeper than your bank balance. It changes your identity. Imagine two people. One believes there's never enough. Every dollar feels like something to protect. Every expense feels like a threat. The other believes money is a tool, something to grow, and something to share wisely. Both may earn the same income, but they experience money completely differently. Generosity isn't about giving recklessly. It's about refusing to let fear become your financial advisor. Maybe it's helping your parents, supporting a local cause, buying lunch for someone who's struggling, mentoring a young entrepreneur, or quietly changing someone's day without expecting recognition. Strangely enough, people who practice intentional generosity often become more thoughtful with the rest of their spending, because every dollar begins carrying meaning, not just value. Money flows differently when it's connected to purpose, and purpose has a remarkable way of making discipline feel easier. Now here's where things become even more interesting. The next habit doesn't ask you to spend more. It asks you to slow down. Because some of the most expensive mistakes in life happen at full speed. Thing number 11. Schedule a monthly money meeting with yourself ***. Imagine running a company. Would you ignore the numbers for months? Would you hope everything somehow works itself out? Probably not. Yet millions of people manage their personal finances exactly that way. They check their balance. They pay a few bills. And then they avoid looking any deeper. Successful people do something different. Once every payday, or once every month, they sit down with complete honesty. No guilt. No excuses. Just curiosity. Where did my money go? What worked well? What didn't? What surprised me? What needs to change before next month? These questions may seem simple, but over time, they become life-changing. Think of an airplane flying across an ocean. It doesn't stay perfectly on course. Tiny adjustments happen constantly. Without them, the plane ends up hundreds of miles away from its destination. Your finances work the same way. Small corrections, repeated consistently, prevent massive regrets later. This isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. Because you can't improve what you're unwilling to measure. And once you know exactly where you stand, you unlock one of the greatest financial superpowers of all. Thing number 12. Create more than one source of income ***. For decades, many people believed one good job was enough. For some, it still is. But relying on a single income source is a little like sitting on a one-legged chair. As long as nothing moves, you're fine. Until something does. Imagine your paycheck as a river. What happens if that river suddenly dries up? Now imagine several smaller rivers flowing toward the same lake. One slows down. The others keep moving. That's resilience. Additional income doesn't have to begin as a business empire. It could start with freelancing, teaching a skill online, selling digital products, investing in dividend-paying assets, renting equipment you already own, creating content, licensing your expertise. At first, the extra income may seem insignificant, a few $100s, maybe less. But every mighty river begins with small streams. The goal isn't to work yourself into exhaustion. The goal is to reduce dependence. Because every additional source of income buys something priceless. Options. The ability to say no to bad opportunities. The freedom to leave unhealthy environments. The confidence to make decisions from strength instead of desperation. And now, we've reached the final stretch. The last 3 habits aren't really about money anymore. They're about the kind of person you become every time a paycheck arrives. Because in the end, your bank account is often just a reflection of your daily identity. Thing number 13. Ignore the noise. Follow your own financial blueprint. Imagine trying to navigate through a city while thousands of strangers shout different directions. Buy this. Upgrade that. You deserve more. You're falling behind. That is modern life. Every day, advertisements, influencers, and social media compete for one thing, your attention. But behind that attention is something even more valuable. Your paycheck. The truth is, someone else's lifestyle is not your financial plan. The car they drive may be financed. The vacation they posted may have been paid for with debt. The success you admire might be hiding stress you never see. Comparison is expensive. Not because it costs money immediately, but because it convinces you to spend money chasing a life that was never meant to be yours. The wealthiest people often share one quiet habit. They stop trying to look rich. They focus on becoming secure. Because confidence doesn't need applause. And financial freedom doesn't need an audience. When your paycheck arrives, ask yourself one question. Does this decision move me toward my goals, or toward someone else's expectations? That answer will save you far more than money. It will save years of your life. Thing number 14. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Building wealth is surprisingly ordinary. Most months won't feel dramatic. You won't wake up suddenly feeling financially free. There won't be fireworks after every investment. No standing ovation because you skipped an unnecessary purchase. Instead, there will be small victories. Your emergency fund reaches its first milestone. Your investments quietly grow. Your debt becomes smaller than it was last year. Your spending becomes more intentional than it was last month. These moments are easy to overlook, but they matter. Imagine climbing a mountain during heavy fog. You can't always see the summit. Sometimes you can't even see the next 100 feet. The only evidence you're making progress is the fact that you keep climbing. Money works the same way. If you only celebrate perfection, you'll quit long before success arrives. Celebrate consistency. Celebrate discipline. Celebrate becoming a little wiser every payday. Because extraordinary financial lives are built from remarkably ordinary decisions, repeated over and over again. And that brings us to the final lesson. The one that quietly connects every habit you've heard today. Thing number 15. Remember that every paycheck is a vote for your future. Imagine holding two envelopes. One is labeled today. The other, 5 years from now. Every payday, whether you realize it or not, you choose which envelope receives more attention. Every purchase, every investment, every unnecessary expense, every dollar saved, every skill you learn, every debt you avoid, every asset you build. They're all votes. Not for the life you have today, but for the person you'll become tomorrow. Most people believe their future is created by one big opportunity, one promotion, one lucky break, one brilliant investment. But history tells a different story. Great lives are usually built quietly, decision after decision, habit after habit, paycheck after paycheck. You don't become financially free because of one extraordinary month. You become financially free because ordinary months were handled extraordinarily well. That's the real secret. And once you understand it, every payday stops feeling like an ending. It becomes a beginning. Think back to the very first paycheck you ever received. Remember that feeling? The excitement, the possibilities, the belief that life was opening new doors. That feeling never disappeared. It simply became buried beneath routines, bills, stress, habits. But every paycheck still carries possibility, not because of the number printed on it, but because of the decisions that follow.